What's up, brothers?
Welcome back to another episode of Whiskey and Water.
I'm your co-host, Jess.
I'm your co-host, Liv.
Also known as Whiskey and
I am Water.
You love to see it.
It's pretty, well, you
pretty
know,
self-explanatory.
If you're new here, she's Whiskey and I'm Water, and our show is all about the balance of business, of personal development, of self-care, yada, yada, yada.
I'm like, what is our show about?
Yeah, right? But we have an amazing episode for you guys today. Happy Monday, or whatever day you're listening to this. If you are listening, take a screenshot.
Post it on your story. Well, I guess if you're watching.
Yeah, if you're watching, or if you're listening too, take a screenshot right now and post on your story. Let us know you're listening. Tag us. We absolutely love to see it. And also, we like to do a little review spotlight. So we're going to read one of the reviews that we have here. Guys, we love these, and they really just fill our heart and soul and make us feel warm inside.
Yes, this review is from Hey, It's Sexy. I feel like, these are just like usernames that people probably have on their Apple ID and don't change for years, but regardless, these girls are so genuine and sweet. They're both open and raw about their lives and the things that they've gone through. They're legitimately my idols. Love you, brothers.
Oh my god, don't gas us up.
I love you,
guys.
You're my idol.
If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to us on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, and give us a nice little review.
So sweet. Literally makes our day. So we appreciate that.
It truly does. But before we get into this week's incredible episode with Natalie, we're going to tell you about our show sponsors.
Hell yeah, brother.
Cheers to that. You guys know we love Celsius. It is healthy energy. It accelerates your metabolism and it burns body fat.
Yes, we love it because it is just healthy energy. There's no high fructose corn syrup. There's no aspartame. No aspartame. We struggle with that word.
The devil works hard, but we work harder.
There's no preservatives, and there's no artificial colors or flavors, which you love to see. You
really don't have that crash, that coffee crash.
Yes. And I literally put this on to anyone and everyone. I'll be on set, and I'm like, if you guys, they're just like other drinking, the leading competition energy drinks.
Which we shall not mention names.
No, but guys, seriously, if you haven't already tried this and you're into energy drinks or you're into just healthy energy, Celsius is the way to go.
We officially have our assistant hooked, and now Celsius is sending them cases. Let's go.
Hell yeah, brother. And we love that for her.
Yeah, she is winning at life right now. Hey, free Celsius for life, that's a dream. Well, I don't know if it's for life, but for the time being.
For the time being.
Anyways, link in our description. You guys know where to find it. Check them out.
Yes, our next sponsor that we'd like to thank is Women's Realm. We love Women's Realm because it is an amazing resource for finding everything women's. They also have their sibling realms, because I said sisters last week. They have Nutrition Realm, they have Sleep Realm, which are all just really, really great realms that you can find all of these amazing resources at. And yeah,
so pretty much they are websites where you can go. There's blog forms. They write different types of blogs about different products, and it's a place where you can do like a one-stop shop. You can find really great vetted products that have good reviews, so you don't have to sit there and skim through all. I'm definitely like a review-based person.
Yeah,
I read reviews before I go to a restaurant, before I buy anything.
She's religious about it.
I'm reading reviews, because no one likes to waste their money. So to go to one place and have all the products there vetted already, and you don't have to sit there and sift through reviews, I think that's amazing.
Hell yeah, brother. So go check it out. Link in description.
Link in our description to check out Women's Realm. All right, so before we get into our episode, we want to do our weekly challenge. This is something we like to do every week.
Weekly.
Imagine that.
Yeah, so last week we initiated you guys turning off your phones at 9 p.m. Hope you guys loved that. Please let us know how it went for you. This week, we are encouraging you to do a social media cleanse. So unfollow any of those accounts that don't inspire you, that aren't vibing with you, that don't make you feel great. Like if you're playing the fucking comparison game, unfollow it, remove it. That ex's ex-girlfriend that you shouldn't be following, don't follow them either. And we're going to inspire you guys to follow 10 accounts that are in your niche or that inspire you. Anything that is like just posting motivational content or, giving you inspiration, follow accounts in your niche. And
yeah, that's so great because so many accounts that, I started my Instagram 5 years ago. There's still accounts that I followed 5 years ago that I am not interested in at all anymore. So I think it's really important to kind of incorporate like these cleanses into your, I don't know, like maybe once a month, just start doing it. But for this week, yeah, that's the challenge. Go through anything that's not resonating with you, making you feel like less than or like you're not doing enough, whatever it is, just unfollow. And if it's someone who you think might take it personally, there's a great feature called mute. And you can just choose to mute someone and they'll never know.
Or you can choose to not give a fuck.
Or you could be whiskey about it and
just unfollow and never look back.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, because if you want to unfollow that person, it's for a good reason.
But definitely like what you're ingesting plays such a big role in your day-to-day like mindset.
And you know, we spend so much time on social media that it's like, why wouldn't you cultivate this space for yourself?
And there's so many inspiring accounts to follow. So definitely there's no shortage of inspiration and motivation and just really great accounts that you would want to be seeing the content they're putting out. I mean,
one of my favorites personally is the Jessica Experience. You knew I was going to say
and Olivia PW and Whiskey and Water Podcast.
And Mood the Agency, baby.
And the Casa Experience. I mean, just to list a few.
You just love it. You know, my favorite YouTube, it's called Lifestyle Live.
Close.
So, you know.
Okay, guys, this week we are getting into it with our guest Natalie. She is awesome. She has a huge YouTube platform.
She's our new BFF.
She's our new BFF. We're gonna hang out when she comes down to Miami, and she does a lot. She wears a lot of hats, and we really related to a lot with her. She has a YouTube channel. She has a consultation business. She has her own podcast called The Real Real, and she is dabbling into real estate investing, which is something we both are really interested in right now. We talk a lot about team management, task management, productivity, and
how to manage all of these products,
how to balance it all, and really
projects. I didn't mean products.
Projects, and kind of just really managing different projects and scaling those projects as well. So we have such a good conversation. We both just feel like we got a new friend, and we're definitely looking forward to connecting in the future. You guys are going to love this conversation.
Yes, if you guys enjoy it, please send it to a friend that you feel like could benefit from it, and we will see you on the other side, brothers.
Yeah, see you there. All right, guys, we have Natalie on. Thank you so much for joining us. Finally, long awaited after many attempts, so we made it happen. Thank you so much. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I know I thank you for your patience, because I never rescheduled this many times, but it was just like so many issues that came up like every Monday. So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, the universe aligned for us today.
Yes. And if anyone's aware of the problems that come with scheduling, it's us. So no worries at all. We're so happy to finally have you here to talk about everything that you have your toes dipped in. But first, before we get into the good stuff, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Natalie. I am a YouTuber, podcaster, and I'm also the founder of WeBloom Social, which is a social media agency. And I've been on social media for 10 years now. So it's literally been like forever, I feel like. Yeah, I started on YouTube in 2011. And it was even before like Instagram was a thing. It was before like social media really was what it is. And I feel like it was just so weird, like me filming myself and putting it on the internet at such a young age. But I like loved all of these girls that did their makeup online, like room tours and these like tags. And so I kind of jumped on that and have been doing it ever since. And then I ended up starting a podcast about almost 2 years ago. And then I founded WeBloom Social, which just helps brands connect to their audience. And it's like a social media strategy agency. And so that's like the newest thing. I started that last year, but it's been going really well.
Nice.
Awesome. I mean, I love that you do so many things, because I feel like we can relate to that as well. You also bought your first house recently, which is super dope as well.
Yeah. I bought my house in the very beginning of this year, like first week of January is when it closed. And it's so exciting because like I didn't think I was going to at 24. I was like, it just ended up honestly working out when I moved back home from New York to Charlotte. I like saved a lot more money than I expected. There were so many houses that were like going up on the market that were like good deals. So it was just like right place, right time. So I'm really grateful for it.
I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to get into it with you, because as we shared before we started recording, I got my first property too last year. I got a duplex, so we can definitely chat about that later in the episode. Excited to get into it. I kind of want to ask about your YouTube journey. I have just started my YouTube journey a few months ago. It is tough, but you are somewhat of an OG. I mean, you got on the platform 10 years ago. I just want to see what your take is on growing with YouTube, having your community grow with you, and pretty much watching you grow up. What has that been like?
Yeah, it's actually crazy because like I would say I have had like a slow and steady growth. Like I never had anything that like popped off that like, oh my God, I grew overnight. So it was very steady along the way, which at times can be discouraging because you see other people like growing so much quicker than you that started not at the same time or like even like later than you. So that can be hard, but I actually like it because my subscribers really have grown with me. Like we're all around the same age. We all have the same type of like interest. And also you don't like, I feel like if you go viral off of one video, everyone that follows you from that video expects you to do like only that content, like you're kind of like stuck with like whatever made you go viral. So now with like doing lifestyle content and making content along the way, you can kind of like film whatever you want and your subscribers know you so well, like they literally grew up with you. So it's been, I really like that. And like some people come along the way, like in college or post grad, like it's not like everyone's been there from the beginning, but it's just cool seeing like all of us grow up together and like enter these new stages of life together. So like I really feel comfortable with like whatever I decide to post. I know that my followers will like resonate with it.
I love that you said that too, because on TikTok, it's huge. If you like blow up for one thing, then your audience really only stays for that one thing as well. And, I know just kind of watching you and your YouTube journey, I feel like you are kind of like, we're lifestyle influencers at the end of the day. Like we don't really have a super, direct niche. Yeah. So I think that hearing you say that is honestly, I feel like instilling a lot of confidence in us, because it's like, people just, sometimes want to be invested into your journey and you as a person. So I love that you said that.
And YouTube is such a different platform than everything else because of that reason. It's like, this is a journey. Like you can look back at your channel and literally watch every milestone in your life and like how you've shared that with your audience and how they've gotten to like really be your friend.
I have goosebumps.
Yeah,
that's cute.
No, it's really amazing if you think about it. And like you have such a different connection with your audience on a platform like YouTube versus Instagram. And something that we always notice is that YouTubers have such high engagement on Instagram. And it's because they are actually invested in you as a person. They don't just like your bikini photos like a lot of profiles on Instagram like who have a bunch of followers, like they just have those photos to offer. Whereas as someone who's posting consistently on YouTube and has been for a while, people are so invested in your life and what you're doing and your journey and your real estate. So I just think that's like so cool.
It's like invaluable having that kind of connection with your audience.
Yeah, and I think it's also because we are so like intimate with our followers in a way. Like I like take you through my morning routine or like what I do. Like I don't have makeup on and I'm gonna vlog or like, and it's very like raw, whereas I feel like sometimes Instagram, it's like the highlight reel, it's very perfect, or even like TikTok, it's so short. Like, yeah, it's very like authentic, but it's like you get 60 seconds of the person. You don't get like a 20-minute video. So I think YouTube is the most where like people think that they are your friend because you are literally treating them as your friend like on the internet. So I think it's definitely the most like, that's why it's the most engaging, because they actually like know you or feel like they know you.
Totally.
And I'm kind of curious, like, how do you feel like YouTube has added like value to your life? Because I know a lot of people, now use it as like, it's like a job. YouTubers are a thing. They're like the OG influencer, So, for someone that, if one of our listeners wanted to start a platform, start a YouTube today, what would kind of be your advice to them? And if they should?
Yeah, I mean, YouTube has opened so many doors. Like when I started it 10 years ago, I didn't know that it would ever be a job. I didn't know that it would ever be what it is today. I mean, I don't even think AdSense was a thing. Like, I don't think you could make money when I started. I don't remember when I got my first paycheck. I know I was in high school, but I think it was like $100 in like my senior year of high school or something. It's like when I got my first paycheck, I think. So
that's crazy.
It was really little and like it wasn't anything like big. But I feel like it's opened up so many opportunities and so many doors because you really are just like being yourself. So like things that are similar to you or things that interest you, kind of you like attract them like when you're putting yourself out there on YouTube. So I think that is awesome how it's just like granted so many opportunities. And for anyone that like wants to start, I honestly just say, just do it. Like literally just start filming on your phone, film on whatever you have. Like I literally started on my computer webcam, and like 10 years ago the quality was probably much worse. I mean, it was, you can watch
on a photo booth.
Yes, literally it was on photo booth. I filmed a makeup tutorial. Like it's so bad. It's still up there.
I love
like
it.
But so like I think just starting and then getting better as you go, because I feel like a lot of people now can see the success. Like when I started, I didn't know you could be successful, so I guess I went into it a little more naive. But now people see like, oh my God, these big productions or these people are getting like rich off of YouTube, so they think that they have to like make that content. But you really just learn as you go, and like you can't really compare your first video to like someone's 1,000th video, because it's just not going to compare in quality. So just uploading and like doing it and then continuing it and like being consistent in it is the best advice, I would say.
That's amazing, because personally, speaking from someone who just started their channel, it's been rough, and I keep telling people, I'm like, subscribe to my channel, please.
Yeah.
Like it's hard out here, and it's really hard to transfer your audience over from a platform like Instagram to YouTube. You would think that like if someone had a decent following that they would be able to get people over to YouTube, but it's tough.
It just doesn't even work like that.
And I don't know why, like, but it just doesn't work like that. So it's validating to hear you say that, and I think YouTube is definitely, I'm learning firsthand, is like a long game type of thing. It's not instant gratification. It's something that you just have to be consistent and show up and put your all into it, and then just like be patient, really.
Yeah.
Really similar to the podcast, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's funny what you said, because you were like, don't expect your production to be, the same, but we kind of went backwards with our podcast. Like our first podcast, we had 3 cameras that we're filming in 4K.
It was insane.
We had like effects on the entire hour-long video, and then we kind of like scaled back down from that because we felt, we just realized that was OD. So it's kind of like backwards for you too.
Yeah, it's interesting. But speaking of which, I want to get into your podcast. You have a podcast of your own called The Real Real, which I totally love.
I like sent you that name, and I was like, that is genius.
Yeah,
I was like, that is such a good name.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your podcast and what you talk about, and maybe your decision to even start the podcast.
Yeah, so I started it in two Marches ago. I think March of 2019 it was. So it's almost 2 years now, or maybe it was April. I actually don't remember, but sometime 2 years ago. And honestly, it was one of those things where it was like, I just started listening to podcasts, and like, I loved interview podcasts. I liked people that interviewed other people, because you could just like learn so much more. And so I was like, I feel like this could be cool if I did this with like people that I know in real life, or people that have different career paths or different jobs. And because I felt like all the podcasts I listened to were a lot of really, really, really successful like CEOs and entrepreneurs of these huge companies, and like people that kind of were not relatable anymore. And so I kind of wanted one to be a little more relatable, and to share like your real reel, not your highlight reel that like everyone sees on social media. That's where I came up with the name for it. I was conflicted because I know that there's a store called The Real Real, and it's like, it's spelled differently, but I was like, whatever, it's a different thing. Like that's like, mine's a podcast, theirs is like a consignment bag shop, and
totally different. Totally different.
Like whatever. But I started that like 2 weeks after I had the idea. I like ordered the mic on Amazon, and then just started asking like my cousin or my friends or like random people to be on and be the guests, and it did really well. And honestly, I just loved talking to other people with it, because like YouTube can be such a solo career, like you film videos by yourself, you edit videos by yourself, it's so lonely. And so podcasting was just so much more fun. Like you could meet up with someone and talk to them, or like really get to know a person. And I mean, we're going to be talking for like an hour, like we're going to really get to know each other by the end of this. So sure. I just love that. And so I've been doing that now for I guess 2 years now, and it's been like great. Like I've got to meet so many cool people with it.
Yeah, and I listened to the episode that you had with the co-founder of Summer Fridays. Wow.
I was so scared to film. I was like so nervous. I was like, oh my God, this is like the biggest guest I've had on.
No, that's absolutely amazing. And it was such a good episode. So amazing job. But the episode prior to this one being released is we do an episode dedicated to podcasts and starting a podcast. And we talk about the value of having guests on, and the value of having a podcast to even offer your audience and using it as a tool for networking. Because had you not had the podcast to, offer to her, it's really like, how else would you start that conversation? So it's just so cool to be able to connect with people who you wouldn't think you would be able to, and have a whole hour-long conversation with them.
So I always tell people that networking or that podcasting is such a good way to network because people love talking about themselves and people love like promoting themselves, you know?
Sure.
So I feel like it's such a good way to be like, hey, I'll offer you free marketing because that, in a way it's free marketing for that person.
Totally.
If you come on my podcast and then you have a podcast episode, you talk for an hour, you meet and you like actually get to know each other. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like a way that you would never network if you didn't have the podcast, like you said.
Yeah, and I love that. I'm actually curious as to like your journey within YouTube and going to podcasting. Like, did you ever feel like it's too much? Like, did you have difficulty kind of like transferring, you know, people over? Do people like listen to both and get like different things from both? Because I do feel like, you know, one is your YouTube is more lifestyle, and then I feel like your podcast is a little bit more value based. So I'm kind of just curious about like your experience with that, and if you feel like, because sometimes we feel like we're almost like pushing out too much stuff,
too much content
for people to like kind of be invested into it all. So just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I wanted to make my podcast different than my YouTube. That was like something I was really intentional about. I didn't want to just have another like influencer podcast where it was like, this is what I did today and this is like my favorite skincare products and whatever, because those can be rewarding to some people, but I just was like, I talk so much about myself on my YouTube. I don't want to talk about myself anymore on my podcast. So that's why I decided to like interview people, because I don't do that on my YouTube channel, and I wanted to differentiate the two, but still have it be one brand where it's still like productivity focused or like still providing value in a way. And so that's why I decided to do that, like instead, like to differentiate the two. But I definitely think people listen to both. It's just a lot of times people will like pick what episodes sound interesting to them, because I do offer, you know, I do interview a different type of guests. So like they'll be like, oh, maybe I'm not interested in like this entrepreneur, but I'll be interested in like this like teacher that was on the podcast. So people definitely pick and choose episodes that they listen to. And then some people have found me just through the podcast, which I'm like, how? Because like I would love to know like how people find the podcast or like how people find me. So Instagram is a good way of like interacting with your podcast listeners, like by having like an Instagram account for your podcast so that they can actually like communicate with you. Because like the bad thing about podcasts is no one can like comment or respond to an episode, you know, besides
you're
review.
not wrong.
Yeah, it's very like, it's a completely like one-sided relationship. Like you are speaking to them, but like they can't respond back to you at all.
Yeah, we have found that like with our Whiskey and Water podcast Instagram account, it definitely allows us to talk to our listeners. Like we do a lot of like, you know, polls, kind of just always trying to get them like involved. And I would say that helps a ton as well.
Yeah, and I think something that you're really good at too is like interweaving all of your socials. Like for example, you watch your YouTube video and you talk about the podcast episode that you're recording that day, and then you'll put a little snippet of that. And I watched that and I was like, oh,
that's so smart.
I was like, genius. No, it's really
I know you
great.
have to do that. You have to like cross promote and be like verbal about it. I feel like you have to be like, go listen to my podcast so that people can like be reminded.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why even like on our personal stories, every time we have an episode that releases, we are on our personal stories being like, swipe up to fucking listen.
Like this week we're talking about Biz. I know people are probably so annoyed on our fucking Instagrams. They're probably like, God, stop talking about this.
Could not care less.
I want to know a little bit about your podcast and if you feel like it's benefited your agency, your business.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll talk about your agency too if you want to let people know like what exactly you do with that.
Yeah, so I definitely think the podcast has helped in a way of like, and I realize the benefit of podcasting. And so I like really heavily push podcasting to my clients at the agency. So what I do at the agency is it's a social media agency that's social media strategy. So we connect brands to their audience in a very organic way. So we will be the ones creating their content calendar. We'll be the ones telling them like what hashtags to use, how to engage with their followers, or like how to attract new followers, engaging with similar accounts. We'll do influencer marketing campaigns. So to increase brand awareness or conversions. And then we also do podcast tours. So like if we like working with founder focused brands where like the founder is like the face of the brand, because then we can put that founder on different podcasts. And because I have a podcast, I see the value in podcasting, and I can like explain to my clients like how valuable podcasting is, like you said, for networking and for brand awareness. Like if you listen to a podcast and it's like a founder of some company, you're spending a whole hour literally listening about this company. Like it's so much more authentic than just like a sponsorship or like an ad, because you really feel like you know them, and then you feel like you know them by the end of the episode, so you like want to support them, so you want to support their company. Like it's just so good to get on podcasts if you're a business owner. So we do that a lot. So like having my podcast has helped me really get a better understanding of like the importance and value of podcasts, I would say.
Love that.
That is awesome. And I can even vouch for that because when I listened to your Summer Fridays episode, that made me invested in the brand. I was telling her, I was like,
she's like, I'm ordering the jet lag mask now.
I was telling her because we're thinking about doing a brand later on, a clothing line, and it made me reconsider some things, and it was just great. And now I have an eye out for that brand, and I'm gonna start, tracking them more. And I know their story, I know how they started, I know about the founder. So that is so true and such a great benefit of podcasts.
We have a lot of like, I feel like lately we've been having a lot of people reach out to the podcast and say, hey, we have like this founder of X, Y, and Z that like wants to come on. And so
it's a great tool. Absolutely. And I love your WeBloom Social. I think that's so smart that you're working with people who are founders, because that's just a different type of business. Like versus having like, a corporation or a team and you don't really know who's there. I would love to get your insight on like the benefits of being the face of your brand, like who your clients are.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest benefits is that like connection, like people really trust you a lot more and they view you more as like that small business that they want to support, and they know your story, and like you just trust the brand a lot more if you know who is like the face of it, or if you hear some story of like how they started from like in the garage and now they're this company. It's just like inspiring to a lot of people and they want to support that. So those are the benefits of that. And like you're recognizable, you have like a personal voice. And with engagement, like you said, how like YouTubers have really high engagement on Instagram, it's similar to founder focused brands. They have higher engagement because people then feel like they know the owner of the brand. It's like, this brand that I follow, like, Olivia is the founder of it. Like, let me engage with it because I actually know, or I feel like I know her because I know the story of behind the brand. So it just helps with like engagement. People can like refer you a lot more. Like I wear Set Active all the time. Like they're like one of my favorite workout brands. And I listened to a podcast episode with the founder, and that's how I even found out about it in the first place. And so when I listen to that podcast, now whenever I wear it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. Like this girl founded it. She was like in her 20s, blah, 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 and like, I feel like it's like, I'm supporting my friend's brand. Or I'm like, I have we don't know each other. But I just like feel like it because I know her story so well. So I think that that's like a huge benefit of being the founder. And also then you have more opportunities, like speaking opportunities to talk about it. The downside of it, I will say, is that like if you ever make any changes and like then maybe one day you sell your company or you're not working for that company anymore, it's like you're the face of it. So like what's going to happen? But I feel like that's something to think about down the road. It's not really, I still think that the like pros outweigh the cons.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, listen, if you sell that company for, a few million, hopefully everyone
is happy.
Yeah, is just happy for you.
Exactly. Like, they're like, you go, girl.
Got to get that bag.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's awesome. I don't know where I saw it on one of your socials. I saw you talking a little bit about accepting clients. I don't know if it was in a podcast episode, but I really liked what you said. It was kind of like when I first started the agency, I was accepting anyone and everyone who wanted to work with me. And now you're a little bit pickier about the brands or the clients that are in line with your brand and align really well. And I would love to talk about that because it's really relevant, because we just started our content creation agency Mood. And we're kind of going through the same phase of like, a few weeks ago, we were like, yes, we'll take anything. And now we're like, all right, we
signed a couple people and now we're like, can't take everyone.
We're like, here's the wait list. So I would love to hear your take a little bit about picking and choosing clients, especially in the beginning.
So someone actually gave me this advice, someone that had an agency for like 10 years already. He was like, you need to literally write down who you want to work with, like your ideal client. Like doesn't have to be a name, but like, what do they look like? What are their interests? What's
their budget?
What's their budget is a huge one.
True.
What type of business do they have? Like you really have to write down like who you want to work with, the type of person you want to work with, because then if not, you're going to say yes to people that are going to make you miserable, that you're not going to want to work with, that aren't going to benefit you. And I had that experience early on. I just began saying yes to people and I was like, yeah, we can do that. Like someone was like, oh, can you do like this service? And I was like, yeah, of course we can do it, just because I wanted to like have clients. And then it ended up being honestly really miserable. Like none of us were happy. I feel like I wasn't performing my best because I was saying yes to things that I probably shouldn't have been saying yes to. And then also they weren't treating me with the respect or with like the boundaries that I needed to have. And it was really hard for me to tell them like, hey, I'm not going to answer your text at like 11 at night. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so it was, I really had to visualize who I wanted to work with and the type of person or the type of business rather than just like saying yes because I needed experience. And now that I've done that, I've been a lot happier. I've gotten clients that I actually like, and I've been, you know, doing things that I feel like I can actually like learn from rather than just learning that I like don't like doing this. Cause like with that, with some clients I didn't really love, it was like, I'm never going to want to work with something like this again. Like this isn't even helping me. Like,
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think really visualizing like who you want to work with and like the type of work that you want to do is really important, and sticking to it. Cause even if in the beginning you're a little slow, like the right people will come eventually. And like, as long as you're like looking out for those people and like pitching yourself, like I do a lot of like cold emailing, like, or like on Facebook groups.
yeah.
I found some clients from Facebook groups, like
Nice.
freelance females, you know, if someone's like, I'm looking for someone that does X, Y, and Z, and I'll do one of those things, I'll like respond and be like, hey, like I have an agency that does this, like let's hop on a call. So it's a lot of like outreach also with like finding clients that you like.
That's great. And I'm glad you said outreach, because we're always pushing our audience, like, don't be scared, shoot your shot. Like, you miss all the shots you don't take. And I think a lot of times people wait for it to come. Like for influencers, they'll wait for a brand to reach out, or you, like you said, to get clients, you'll wait for them to come to you. But it's just as much about going out there and finding them and getting them.
Yeah, and you know, some brands will be like annoyed by it because I'm sure they might get a lot of emails, but some brands will be like, thank you so much for reaching out. This is exactly what I needed, exactly what I was looking for. And so it's like, I would rather have, you know, XYZ brand mad at me and then this brand filling my pocket. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I mean, we're huge on
And
brand outreach.
the worst they do is just don't respond or say no. Like you don't
Yeah.
lose anything by reaching out.
For
Definitely.
sure. Or, you know, even if they're not prepared to like pay you, they could, you know, at least you're establishing yourself and your name with that brand. Like I will notice that when I do brand outreach, they will follow me, even if like they don't respond necessarily. Like maybe they're just keeping me on their radar or on their list for like later when they're doing these campaigns. So seriously, it doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt at all. I want to talk a little bit about productivity, since that is a big part of your brand and your YouTube channel and what you chat about on your podcast, and kind of interweave. Is it weave-in or woven?
Good question.
I honestly
Interweaving. I think it's like
Interweaving.
interweaving your.
Interweaving.
I feel like there's a better word for that.
You guys know what I
Cross
mean.
promoting?
No.
Do you want to use that? Or like all of it together.
It's like all of it together.
Just this motion.
Well,
whatever that
anyways,
is.
you guys can obviously read my mind. You know what I'm talking about. I want to talk about like project management and productivity. And since you have a lot on your plate, we also have a lot on our plate. I feel like we can relate on a lot with each other and kind of just see.
We're struggling. So tell us what the secret sauce is, essentially.
Yeah, I want to know what your best tips and advice are for managing multiple projects at once, and then not only managing but scaling those projects too.
True.
It's definitely difficult. I would say it's one of those things where like I feel like I make it seem like I have it all together on like YouTube, and like I really don't. Like it's one of those things where I use Google Calendar a lot. I use project management tools. Like do you use any like project management tools to communicate?
We use Trello.
Yeah, so similar. So I use like ClickUp, which is really similar to Trello, but something like that to kind of have everything in one place and have everything that you need just like in one
Resource.
I guess, resource. And then really just like I've tried to like batch my time more. So like Fridays, I tried to make exclusively like content days where I'll like film, or I'll film like TikTok, or, you know, film reels or YouTube videos and like actually do my makeup and like look presentable, you know? So like Fridays are those days. And like Mondays, I do all my catch-up calls. I'll do like my like calls with my team, which my team right now is just one person really. So it's not like a huge team or anything like that. But we'll talk about like what we have going on in the week and making sure that we're all like up to speed and like kind of setting out the foundation of the rest of the week. Mm-hmm. So I'll try to like batch things like that just to like make my life easier. And then also asking for help. Like I am so fine with now asking for help or like looking for like people even for certain projects. Like I'm hired someone to do like the SEO for my website. Like she's not a part of WeBloom Social, but just like a freelancer to come in and help me with something that I might not know of, or I might not be like the best at, or I hired a copywriter for like one project that I needed, so don't be afraid to like ask for help or like outreach and like ask people that know better than you in certain subjects, because I think that just makes your life like so much easier, and it's an investment too. And sometimes people will do it for experience too, if you have like a tighter budget, because I know that was always my thing. I'm like, I don't want to pay someone to do something like if I can do it myself. Like I just don't have the money for it. So sometimes people will do things off of experience. Sometimes you can ask your friends that are in the field to help you, but I've really now been like less scared and less worried to like be like, hey, I need help with this. Like, can someone help me? Or like, do you know anyone I can talk to? And I've just been more like outgoing, I guess, even with the people that I know in my real life, of like asking them to help me out with something. So really managing it is like Google Calendar, my project management tool, and then like asking for other people's help too.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it's really important to know, like, we are not all perfect people. We're not great at everything. Like, it's so important to look at yourself and assess your strengths and your weaknesses. And there is nothing wrong, like you said, outsourcing your weaknesses. Like, whatever you know that you're either A, not good at, or B, don't enjoy doing, hire someone to do it. Is there a website that you use to find these freelancers?
So usually I honestly reach out to like my Instagram followers. Nice. I feel like there's a good network there, and like they know my brand already. So like they know my voice, they know my brand. So I first reach out to Instagram followers. And then I've used like Fiverr and Upwork to like kind of search for people, but I've never actually hired anyone from there. Okay. Actually, no, I did. I hired a graphic designer to do my podcast, cover art. Yeah. Nice. So I hired someone on there to do that, and they turned it around in like 24 hours. Like some people on there are so quick and like very inexpensive.
Yeah. I was going to recommend that to you. We use Fiverr. Our editor we found on Fiverr, and we use it all. We found a lawyer on Fiverr last week
who made like our contracts and everything. And on Upwork, we actually found
our second assistant. Well, we don't have multiple assistants. We have one assistant, but she's our third assistant.
Got it.
Third one. But yeah, we found our second one on there, and she was great for the time being.
And I'm sure I would love to talk about that with you too, because you have an assistant. And I think for a lot of people, like I feel like they hear that we have an assistant and they're like, you have an assistant? Like that's so official.
Yeah.
But at this point, we cannot imagine running the podcast or trying to scale anything without her.
And it is an investment.
It absolutely is an investment.
It is. And, we don't necessarily like have the money for it, but, we like make the money for it because we know that it's essential to growing.
Yeah, I would love to know what you think about having an assistant and just having a helping hand when you're a one-man show.
Yeah, that's how I feel with so I have someone, her name's Hani, and honestly, like with the agency, she like does agency stuff for me. Like she really just helps with like outreach. She helps with like client calls. Like she's really like a right-hand woman for me. Like she just does everything I do, but like an extra person to do it. And right now, like full transparency, we're pretty much like breaking even, but for a very long time I was paying her with like my personal money of like, I know that this will pay off in the end. Like I know that having her will pay off, but it wasn't like the agency was making enough money to like hire her, pay me out, invest in itself, like all those things. So I was paying her through like my YouTube money and like all the like podcasts and stuff, even though she was really hired for the agency. So it is one of those things that for me, I did look at it as an investment, and I was like, eventually it will pay off. And now we've pretty much broken even, except I think now we're like starting to finally like surpass, like we're making more than like, we're making some sort of profit now. But for a really long time we weren't, and like it was strictly an investment, and it's just a risk. It is a risk, but I do think you have to be really strategic with it. And with that, like you have to hire someone that like compliments you and actually you can delegate things to and trust, because I've hired people before where I like have hired them because they're really nice, and then it's like, but they might not do the best work, or they might not, be the right fit for your brand, or so you have to make sure that like the person you're hiring is actually like doing a good job and like bringing you results, not just like they're a nice person. And that's always so hard because I'm like not very confrontational, so I don't like telling people like you're doing something wrong, or that's like been so hard for me. So learning about how to hire has been a really big like learning curve for me.
No, yeah, we could not agree anymore. Learning how to be just a good boss is definitely its own learning curve, because like we said, our Kennedy is our assistant now. She's amazing. She's our third brain, but she is also the third assistant that we've gone through.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of trial and error and frustration, and like definitely it's hard to know when to say something, because you don't want to be like you're micromanaging them, but you also want to be like, hey, this is the standard. And like if you're not hitting that, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, and you also just want to be like cognizant of like that person is a human and humans make errors, but at the same time being like, don't make fucking errors.
Attention to detail.
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a balance, and honestly, we're really fortunate to have each other, because
you're like, am I being a bitch? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Or sometimes she's like, no, send it. So it's like, it's nice to have a second and third brain to kind of bounce things off of, because even Kennedy, like if it's like if we're having an issue with a client or something, I can be a little bit more aggressive, and I don't mind confrontation, which can is a good and bad thing. So having them to like tone me down sometimes, I'll be like, Kennedy, take this email, make it a lot less mean, and then send it out.
But see, that's like complimentary. You guys compliment each other, and that's good. Like you couldn't have three of you. You have to have people that like fit together and like work well together.
Absolutely.
For sure. With whiskey and water, baby.
Yeah, she's obviously the whiskey here. I want to touch briefly on what you said about making the investment. I think so many people are scared to start something because they think they're like, I'm not going to make money from this as soon as I start, so why do it?
I think it's more, you got to have like the money mindset. You know what I mean? Like if someone's starting something off with like, I'm not going to make enough money, like, I'm kind of like, stealing your combo here, but I think it's just something I'm super passionate about, because it's like, you have to go into something with the intention of like, okay, this is where I'm scaling. I understand that I need to make this investment. I understand that these are like, the responsibilities that come with it. But yeah, I would love to get your insight on that as well.
Yeah, kind of like going for it and taking the leap, because also you starting this business, you're kind of using the platform that you've built since 10 years ago, and I love that you've taken the next step to actually own a business, because I think a lot of influencers or YouTubers can kind of get caught in this like rut of like making money from YouTube and being happy there. But I love that you like took the next step and you're like, no, I want to be like a legitimate business owner and run a legit business.
Yeah, I've always felt that way. I've always felt like I never wanted to do social media full time, like as an influencer, like full time, because you don't really know how long that lasts. And I don't like when people say that either, though, because I'm like, well, you don't know how long anything lasts. But it is one of those things where, it's a little more risky, and like I don't know, I just don't want to always have to like my money come from brand deals or making money from other people or things like that. Like I really wanted to just be a business owner in another sense, which I know like doing social media is still running your own business. It's like a lot harder work than like people might think, but I've just always wanted to do more than that. And I've just never been like super fulfilled with just doing YouTube and Instagram and all of that stuff. But then going back to your question of like how to get into like that money mindset of like how to make money, is that your question? Like how should people go into it and like be patient and like even if they're not making
absolutely.
money?
Or it's kind of just taking the leap of faith, because and like I was saying, why it's a mindset is because I feel like a lot of people are kind of scared about making investments, whether it's time or money, but you've obviously gone into it with the intention of like, okay, we're scaling this thing, we're making money.
Yeah. I feel like for me, you always have to think about like, you're not going to get the result you want immediately. Like it might take a year. It might take a year and a half. It might take 2 years, but I think you have to go into it thinking big and thinking like, this is where I want it to end up. So you're going to continuously make steps to make it end up that way, but like know that it's not going to happen right away. Because I think people see people that are super successful and they're like, oh, I can do that overnight. And it's like, it's not overnight. You have to put in so much work to it, but it's good to have that big picture. Like if you have an end goal or a goal that you want to hit, that's amazing. And I love having goals, but like making sure that you're breaking down those goals into actual like digestible steps, and how are you going to make those? And like in the meantime, it's probably going to be hard. You're probably going to be lonely. It's probably, you're not going to make enough money, but eventually you will if you continue at it. I think people too often want that like instant gratification. And it's like, I want to be famous now. I want to make a ton of money now. And like other people are doing it, so I deserve it too. And it's like, well, you need to put in the work first, because like you're not going to do it overnight.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And so much goes unseen, you know?
So much. And it can be so easy for people who, you know, maybe don't have we obviously have a lot of privilege with our platforms and being able to make money from these brand deals. But I was even just talking to a friend who was like, she texted me and she's like, I'm in a rut. I feel like my life is in a rut. I don't like where I'm at, blah, blah, blah. Like, I hate my job. And I was like, I'm not here for like this negative talk. Like, okay, we're gonna meet up next week. We are going to sit down. We're going to talk about where the fuck you want to actually be in your life. And we are going to make those actual digestible steps to get there. Because I mean, and just this negative, like...
It's like switching your mindset to being solution oriented. You know, like you have to turn on that switch. You can dwell and sit there and think about everything you lack and everything your life lacks and have that like scarcity mindset instead of abundance. Or you can look at things and be like, okay,
the world is mine.
Solution oriented. How can I start to get the life that I want to live? How can I start to bring in the money that I want to see coming into my income streams or whatever it may be?
And, you know, I feel like you probably are in this mindset as well as like, I want multiple income streams. And a lot of people, I think that like when you say that, it's like, well, what am I even going to do? But I feel like what it's about is opening yourself up to that sort of mindset and opportunity and being like, okay, maybe I don't know exactly what I want to do, but let's dabble. But let's dabble. And I know that I want to have, you know, 4 or 5 streams of income. Like even in 2020, you know, I knew that I wanted multiple streams of income. I had no idea what that looked like, but I knew that I wanted money. And I ended up starting an entirely new like vintage home decor business, which I never thought like I was going to be into, but now, you know, I have that stream of income as well and I love it. And, you know,
and I love that you also talk about that too, is just having your YouTube and you do some influencing and you have the podcast. So yeah, I would just like to get your thoughts on having multiple streams of income and why it's a good thing, or maybe if some people might think it's a bad thing and having one like steady job might be better for them.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you guys said about having that mindset though, because it is a mindset switch. Like I empathize with people that are in, you know, don't like their job or like in a bad situation, but you do have to begin to think of solutions. Like it's not going to come to you if you're constantly complaining about it. And there are things to complain about, but you have to actually like do something and like change your situation. Right. I think anyone can do that. So I love what you said about that. As for like the multiple streams of income, I have always wanted to have multiple streams of income. I just like, I'm one of those people that's like paranoid. Like if one thing fails, like I need to have like something else. So I've just, it's kind of like happened naturally also with like starting a YouTube, then brand deals, then AdSense, then podcasts and all of that like kind of happened. So I definitely thought it out, but some things kind of also naturally came as I like continued doing social media. But it's funny because when I did quit my job, I had a corporate job actually for about a year, 9 months after college. And I quit that and that was like a huge deal. Like people, you know, some people were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing that. Like you're losing like this steady, you know, income. And I'm like, now, I mean, looking at how this year has been, I feel like so many people have lost their jobs and now don't have any source of income because they had one job and they unfortunately got laid off or they got furloughed. And with multiple income streams, I haven't really felt that effect as much. And I know I'm in a totally different position. I am in a very, very privileged position, like you guys were saying also, of having all of these streams of income and doing social media. But I think that it's kind of doesn't get the credit it deserves of like, you can make money on the internet and have multiple streams and make money even while working a full-time job. Like I was working at like Accenture and also doing YouTube and my podcast all while working, you know? So like you can still have multiple streams of income also while you are at like a traditional job or like a corporate job. So I definitely think that having multiple streams of income is important because if anything, this year showed us like how quick it is. Like a company can fire you right away and like,
not blink twice.
What are you going to do? Yeah. Like what are you going to do? So I think having multiple streams of income, no matter who you are, no matter what position you're in, is like so important.
Yeah, hallelujah. Like, could not agree more. And that's a constant theme that we've been talking about since day one with the podcast, is just not having all your eggs in one basket. And I think definitely as influencers, it's so easy to be like, I'm making great money, I'm taking pictures, like this is cake, this is easy. But one, like you said, it's not super fulfilling for some people. I mean, you know, others may be really fulfilled from it and that's amazing. But, you know, that's one aspect. And then the second aspect is, what if Instagram goes away tomorrow? You never know. But again, like you said, that could happen anywhere. And we're always saying like, your corporate job is not, you are replaceable in anything. You are replaceable. So just knowing that you have those multiple streams, worst case scenario. And like, this brings me to another point though, and it's something we've talked about often to play devil's advocate here, is this concept of building halfway bridges and never getting to the other side of the island. So I think it's about finding a balance, right, between like wanting to have these multiple projects going on at once, but also, you know, at what point do you complete or decide like, okay, you know what, that's not going to work anymore. Let me dedicate my time and energy into this bridge to get me to that island. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's something I definitely struggle with, because I feel like I have so many different interests, and I'm like, I want to do everything, so let me start everything. But I do think that it's one of those things where like you do have to figure out, really like take a step back and look at what you really want to do, or like what you want your life to look like in a few years, or what your ideal job would be or ideal business would be. But also it's a lot of trial and error. Like I feel like don't be ashamed if you start something and then you end up like closing it down or doing something else. Obviously, if you are constantly doing that for like years and years and years and like never finishing anything, then take a step back and like reevaluate. But I definitely think it's okay to like try things out and see what you like and what you don't like. But hopefully each failure or each setback or each thing that you don't end up completing like leads you to where you want to be. Like that's the goal. If it doesn't, then definitely reevaluate, sit down and like think really hard about what you want to do before you like start something new. But for me, that's been something that's helped me out. It's like, as long as everything that hasn't worked out for me leads me to where like I'm supposed to be, then that's okay. And I think it's been doing that lately. So I'm like fine with it, but it's definitely hard. And like, that's something I always struggle with, is like, do I actually want to start this? Or like, am I actually gonna, like, is this actually worth doing?
Yeah, that was said so well. Love that.
So I actually know that you're in Charlotte, in my home state of North Carolina, and we saw that you actually just bought your first house. Boss bitch moves.
Yes.
So we'd love to know about like how that, like kind of what inspired you to do that, because not a lot of people are in like the real estate mindset. So love that for you, and kind of just want to know about your experience.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to buy a house, but I didn't know when. I thought maybe 2 years down the line. I was like, oh, maybe like a year or two. Like I never really had like a plan by like, oh, by 2021, I'm going to buy my own first house. But once I moved back home, I started seeing there's so many people moving to North Carolina. Like North Carolina and Florida are one of those places where like everyone's moving to during the pandemic. And I was just like looking at house prices and like trying to see like, what could I afford? Like, what's something I could do? And my parents are into real estate. Like they invest in property. So I've always been like inspired by their investment ventures to like invest in real estate eventually. I just didn't think it'd be now. And so I was just like started to tour houses, and I started seeing like what I could afford. And like, once I started doing the numbers of like, if I sold this house, how much I would get back, or if I rented something out, how much I would get back. I was like, this is just such a smart investment while I'm here in North Carolina, because I don't think I'll be here forever. Like I'm here during the pandemic. I don't know where I'll really be in the future, you know? So we'll see. But while I'm down here, I'm like, I think that this is just like a really smart move. And it's something that I could afford right now. And I was like saving money to buy a house eventually. I just never knew when. I didn't have like a specific timeline. So once I found a house that I was able to, it was like affordable. It was something in my budget. It was something that I thought would be a good investment in the future. I just kind of like bit the bullet and was like, okay, let me put an offer in and see how this is. So like the day I toured the house, I like put my offer in, and I ended up getting like, my offer was accepted a few days later. But North Carolina is one of those markets that's like really, really hot. And I was scared that prices were going to soar by the time I wanted to buy something. So I was like, I just need to start looking now and like start making moves now while I can. And so I'm really glad that that happened, and like that I did. And it's been just a fun journey, I guess, doing it. And like I've been doing videos on it, and it's cool because so many people that have grown up with me are also in that stage of life where they're buying a house soon, or they're planning on buying one soon. So it's been really cool kind of communicating with my followers on this, and like sharing it with my followers, and like seeing where they're at, and like questions they have and questions that I have that they can help answer, you know. So it's been a fun thing to document also.
That's awesome. So you plan on, it's kind of a fixer upper, right? It's like older style. It's out of date. What you plan on flipping it or living in it? What are you going to do with it?
I plan on flipping it as of now. I don't think I'll actually live in it. Just also because of like safety reasons. I'm like, I don't know if I want to live in a house by myself. And some people have already like messaged me being like, oh my gosh, I know where that house is. And I know that they're being like nice. Like they might not be creepy. But just the fact that people know my address and then I'd be like living alone. I'm like, you know, maybe when I buy a house. Right. No, I'm like, maybe when I get a house that I'll actually live in, like I'll be very like secretive about it, or like won't like share the before photos or anything like that. So I think I'll just flip it, especially because people are moving to North Carolina. Like right now, I know people are moving, and I feel like the market will still be up later this year, but like what if it's not? So I'm like, I'll just sell it once I'm done with it, and hopefully like do more houses in the future.
Nice. Where are you in the renovation process right now?
We're still in the framing process. They did like the electrical and the plumbing and all of that stuff, because it's like a total like gut renovation. Like it's like a whole new house essentially.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Yeah, so they're doing all of that now, and then hopefully it'll be done in like May.
And how have you gone about like learning how to do a renovation or getting in touch with contractors or things like that?
Yeah, because you're just like, well, I put in an offer, and so we're gutting it.
Yeah.
Like, so wait, we're missing a few steps
here.
Let
the people in.
Yeah, so my parents both do like, they've flipped houses before, they've renovated houses before. Nice. So I really got lucky with like all of their people and like everyone that they've worked with, and like they're in that industry, so they do that. So I was just kind of went with them, which I hate saying, because sometimes people are like, can you give me like recommendations of how to do something, or how do you learn how to do this? And I'm like, I feel so annoying saying like, oh, my family's been in the business. Like it's like, I feel like it just sounds so like snobby, and like I hate saying it, but like honestly that's like how I learned it. Like I got very lucky with like not having to like deal with, you know, bad contractors and things like that, because I know that that's like such a struggle for so many people. So thankfully it's because of that like I haven't been, and I've been like very grateful for that. So I hate saying that, though.
Girl. Don't feel bad. I would be mad at you if you weren't using them as a resource.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah. Power to ya.
I mean, I feel like every parent's hope to like inspire their child and help them out like that, you know?
Pass on the knowledge, you know? That's amazing. I'm sure they're super proud of you. So awesome. Can't wait for your next one.
It's been like a family project, honestly. Like they've been so involved in it. Like they've been really, really helping me out in the terms of like how to pick designs or how to, you know, do things like that. So it's been fun, like seeing their involvement too.
That's amazing to have them as mentors, because like it's a lot. I mean, when I closed 2019 November, and it's a lot. And even dealing with the mortgage company still, I'm like, what's an escrow? How does it work? Like it's a lot to learn. And even she's looking into buying something soon in the near future, and I'm just like, girl,
buckle the fuck up.
Enjoy being a tenant while you can, because I don't understand any of this shit, and I have a place, so it's a lot. But that's awesome.
It is a lot. Yeah, so
right.
I'm excited for it.
Me too. I'm excited to watch your deals and just keep them going, man. I'm pumped for you. I think we can move on to our final 2 questions. This has been such an amazing episode. I feel like we could sit here and chat with you literally forever. But let's get into our 2 episodes to wrap up. 2 questions to wrap up the episode. The first being,
our first question is your business pro tip.
So I would say the biggest tip I would have for business is to really like get organized, because I feel like there is so many things that can go wrong. There's so many different hats that you have to wear. So really having good organization from when you are small and when it's just you and when you barely have anything on your plate, using these like project management tools, planning things out on your calendar, being organized in your email and not letting your inbox like pile up, you know, like having a good organization is like one of the best things, because if you are disorganized from the beginning, you're just going to be even more disorganized as you like get more successful or like get bigger things or more responsibility. So having organization is like one of the biggest things I would say, just for like keeping peace of mind. And then also I would say if you have different interests, exploring those interests, you know, like just exploring different interests to see what type of business you might even want to start, what business you want to go into. I definitely think that it's not a bad thing to try out different things, as long as, like we said, like it gets you to where you need to be. So that's like, I guess my biggest tip for like having like a good business and having like that good foundation.
So good.
Definitely. Retweet on that.
Yeah, retweet for sure. All right. And the second question being, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Oh, this is a good one. I would say the best piece of advice I'd ever received is not to let other people's opinions like bother you and not to focus on other people's opinions. I feel like you really have to have tunnel vision when you're looking at your goals. And I have been one that I have been like caring about what other people thought, or people are going to think I'm weird if I do something, or people are going to think I'm like annoying if I promote this thing, or people are going to, you know, I would always just worry about other people's opinions in my business. And like the second you stop thinking about that is when you are going to actually like be successful and like at least like make some progress or be productive. So if you are starting anything, if you are in business, really, really focus on like your own goals, your own, you know, what you want to achieve. Don't listen to other people's opinions, because also you're the one that knows yourself best. You're the one that knows your business best. And other people's opinions are honestly just distractions and they're just noise. And that's been like one of the best pieces of advice, especially being on the internet. You hear thousands of opinions a day. So you really need to make sure that like you can listen to your own voice and like learn your own voice and, you know, be comfortable with listening to that.
Love that.
Love it. Not to mention the people judging you aren't paying your bills.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
Exactly.
period.
Also, you know, not to mention, there's like, I mean, these people, there's also like a really good quote, and it's like, don't take advice from people that like aren't in your, aren't where you want to be. Yeah. And it's like these people that are on the internet literally hate their lives and are just jealous, you know? Like,
she deals with a lot of trolls.
I deal with a lot of trolls. I think I'm just someone.
I do too.
Who
It's
attracts
okay.
a lot of trolls. But you're so nice.
How do you, what? How could you not
No,
like you?
it's so annoying. It's so, yeah, it's really like, it's just like annoying, and it's a distraction. They're just there to distract you.
Literally just distractions. So blinders on, baby.
Yes. Keep at it. Keep on keeping on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, honestly, I loved this conversation. Like we said, we could talk to you for hours, and just love what you're doing, want to keep up with what you're doing. If people want to find you, where can they find you at?
They can find me at Natalie Barbu, just my name, and then WeBloomSocial.com, or the Real Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But everything is just my name, like YouTube, Instagram, all of that stuff. So yeah.
Awesome.
Guys, go check out her podcast. It's awesome. I listen.
Yes, it is.
And if you're listening or watching, please take a screenshot, share it on your stories, tag us, and we will see you next week for another episode.
Oh yeah, brother. Bye, guys.